Hey all, here is a replay version of the most recent live stream Q&A on all things Social Security that occurs every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this is with all of little silences carved out of it. So I hope it's an easier listen for those who are doing the replay versus being there live. And we'd love to see you live. So feel free to pop in. Bye-bye now. Hey guys, can you hear me? Happy Wednesday. Let's see where we're at. Let me know if you can hear me. I see Dolphin, RG, DJ, Baxter, Virginia, hi there. Quickie, guys. I'm assuming you can hear me? Yeah? That'd be right? Okay. I will assume so. I'm sure you guys will tell me otherwise, right? How's everybody's week going? How's the weather? We've had rain and heat and quite a bit of the typical stormy, sunny, hot, wet, all that. Civil's in the house. Hi, Civil. Yes, you can hear me. Thank you. Okay, so I don't even know what's going on, guys. Things have just been moving at breakneck speed. I'm leaving on Saturday with my family to Jersey Shore. Now that they're older, it's a little bit more fun to do those kind of things as opposed to all work. I'll be bringing my work with me though. But I still have to decide. I'm not coming back till Thursday. So I thought maybe I would move the live stream till Friday, 1 p.m. I don't know how you guys feel about that. It's not that I couldn't do it down there. I just don't know if something will come up because we're all kind of on a pseudo vacation. I'm the one that's pseudo. Everybody else is full-blown, but I got a few things I got to do at that time. Anyway, if you have any thoughts on that, let me know. All right, I'm just going to jump into some of the questions, all right? Dolphin RD says, Dolphin's from California. So many California people. The SSA has announced the addition of 14th health condition. I was going to do a video on that, Dolphin, to their compassionate allowance list. Yes, I haven't read it yet, but I got it in my email. I think it was yesterday, and I just haven't had time. I've been a little slightly under the weather. Just it hasn't slowed me up at all, but I don't know if you guys remember last week, I was getting a little raspy. I don't think it had anything to do with it, but a few days later, I did have a sore throat and a little bit of a very, very mild symptoms of a cold. I have been sucking down every day for like a month. Those emergency things, and there's a generic version. They come in packets and you mix them with water. It's filled with vitamin C. Sorry, I keep moving this, I know. And vitamin C, zinc. It says like a plethora of vitamins and minerals, but those are the two big ones that I think of. So I thought, well, if I do one every day, it's going to help the community and all that business. And I remember zinc being the thing that was found in coldies, and those, there's probably generics of that too now. And I always felt like when I sucked on those lozenges to the point where I wanted to vomit, it really did help alleviate. If I took it early on, as soon as I thought I might be getting a cold, I thought it shortened it and made it a little less aggressive. So I kind of buy into that if it's done early on and everything. So it didn't slow me up, but it kind of curbs my talking time. So I've been saving that for you guys. DJ says, I have a free phone consult tomorrow. Is that with your attorneys? I would hope it's free for your attorney. This is for my appeal on a hearing I had early July. So what are you guys discussing whether you should, you got a denial, right, DJ? So was it to discuss appeals counsel, whether you should appeal to that or file anew? The original representative said the lead attorney isn't taking appeals right now. So I don't know what that's about. But yeah, if it's your attorney or if it's someone who's thinking of taking you on, I would like to think you're not going to charge you for the discussion of taking on your case and evaluating it. If it was something else, yeah. You're just trying to like shop for info. I could see them charging. Baxter says, hey, Steph. Hey there, Bax. Baxter says, I have not worked since June of 2018. Since I've been out of workforce for 8 years, will that have any leverage for my SSDI case? To the negative, Baxter, in the sense that none of the medical stuff you're doing now, your treatment today, can be used to find that you were disabled during your DLI, which probably ended at least 3 years ago, probably about 3 years ago. Because remember, once we stop working, if we don't work a little part-time, a little gigger work, a little part-time work, W-2, we are not earning any credits that are basically the premiums that we would have, to pay the premiums to keep that insurance going. And SSD is term insurance. So I know I keep screwing with this, guys, but it's really bugging me. I'm using my laptop camera as opposed to the Nexigo I normally use. It just seems less bright. It's getting so, I don't know. I didn't like the other one. I'll probably use it again, but I didn't prefer it for a while. So that's the negative part about that. Now, if you're an SSI person, it doesn't matter. But for SSD, they can't find you disabled under SSD rules unless you're disabled during the time period you had the insurance factor, and you, by your facts, probably don't have any insured status anymore, not for quite some time. So any kind of vigorous treatment you're doing now, it doesn't go towards showing that you were disabled back before your DLI ran out. It would answer the secondary question if they did find enough to find that on other information, older information, that you were disabled before your DLI ran out. The current stuff is very important because then question number 2 is, and is he still disabled and has he been disabled since then? So that would be good for that. But you don't get to that question number 2 if you never complete question number 1. Good afternoon, Virginia, to you too, my dear. Baxter says, I have a 10-year documentation of memory loss from neurologists and PCP. I have abnormal findings on EEG and MRI results in a negative manner for me, but good for SSDI case. Good for SSDI case if it's back when you were still insured. So you always got to look at all the dates of all the treatments and where they fall, amongst the many other things. And that would go potentially towards keeping you away from a skilled job, that you might not be able to successfully do it, but it would not necessarily impede unskilled jobs, like a third grader job, that a kid could do. And that's kind of what we have to do. Virginia says, what happens at appeals council receives back from a remanded case for SSI, now 53, was 49 at the time, from California. So you got a remand on an SSI case. So no SSD at all, right? No Social Security. So it gets remanded. Appeals council reviews it. Very rarely are they going to flip it and say a win, but they might. So let's say if the decision of the judge was at age 49, when he made that decision, you were 49, and he used 49 rules. And if at that time he said, she's subject to only sedentary work could she do, maybe unskilled, and has or at the time you lost because you could do sedentary work and maybe even your prior job, it was sedentary, unskilled, whatever, or any other job like that that you could fit into. And now you're 53, and now if you're sedentary, you can potentially grid if you for medical reasons can't do your prior work or don't have any prior work now, because now your 5-year look back period is a whole new time period. And if you haven't worked in 5 years, now you have they can't say there's any transferable skills because it has to be in the last 5 years. It has to be a skilled or unskilled job. So if you have no job, there's no skills. So the third prong wouldn't count either, because you can't transfer those skills because there were no skills. So yeah, it could make a huge difference, just that whole time change, and to win now versus then. And it wouldn't be the first time appeals council, not that it's frequent at all, if they see that the findings were already that sedentary, if the rules were different due to an age change, you would now win. They can award you now instead of sending you back for a hearing. Or if that's not the case, then they would just send you back for the hearing, most likely, and have the judge redo. Hold on a second. I put this fan in here, and don't point it at me. So now it's pointing at me. Now it's going to make me a mess. Okay. Baxter says, that's a little too windy. 2023 SSA psychologist stated I have memory loss. Yep, we saw that before, Bax. That is memory loss. I'm just kidding. Sorry, guys. I got to move this. I'm hoping it won't. It's warm in here, but I don't want to be blown out. The seizure disorder. See, the seizure disorder, Baxter, adds something different than just the memory loss and the cognitive decline. So what I was talking about before, in terms of unskilled jobs, seizure disorder, if it's bad enough and provable that you have them frequently enough despite medications, you should look up the seizure disorder listing. I don't know what number it is. Epilepsy might be under, and carefully read through that, maybe with someone else if you need to see if your medical records, not what you say, what your medical records currently say today about, or in this in the current general time period, what it says about the frequency. How often are they happening? Are they, does your medicine kind of support that? Like, are you on a medicine that would only be for someone who has 4 major seizures a month or more? So look at that kind of stuff, and then it could potentially be a listing under that. So the seizure disorder, and he said it's intractable, is something different, and in addition to, and probably could be very helpful beyond just memory loss and cognitive decline, because it does carve out a bit more. I mean, it's going to carve out working with unprotected heights. It's going to carve out ladders, scaffolds, those kind of jobs. And if the reason why it can be a listing is because if you have them frequently enough, you're not even safe walking across the room, even in an office, in a sedentary job, because you could fall down and crack your skull open, So that's why that frequency has to be documented, submitted to the doctors. They have to know about it. They have to be treating you as if that's true. Those are some of the stronger things that one would look for. Virginia says it's hot in California. I bet it is. Baxter says 2026 neuropsychologist states memory loss and decline also on a functional. Right, but how much, we all have memory loss, And we all tend to decline. So you have to know at what point does it eliminate all jobs backs? You know what I'm saying? Is it so bad you can't do a simple third grader job? You know, someone with a very low IQ, that kind of job? If it does, and if it's really showing that, and not just one-off neuropsychologist report, but your treatment records kind of subscribe to that as well and support that neuropsychologist finding, then that would be stronger versus not as strong. Also, on a function report, I would be off task 20% of the workday. Well, a functional report is what you say, but I think what you're trying to say is the neuropsych said you'd probably be off 20%. And that's great that he said that. However, is that showing up in the rest of your records at your monthly doctor appointments, if you go that often, or your mental health therapy? Are they talking about how distracted you are when they're talking to you? Because think about it. If 1/5 of the time you can't pay attention for a whole hour session, they're going to notice that you're distracted too, right? So if the mental health professional is doing their job, you're going to be saying how he's very distractible. You know, have to keep pulling him back to the topic. I see that kind of connotation when there's a decent therapist articulating the visit, and we'll say have to keep bringing him back to what we're talking about. Keeps getting distracted, you know, keeps looking out the window or keeps losing train of thought, that kind of stuff. So mental health therapists, if anyone's listening, you have to pay attention. Like if you see things like this, anything that's less than an ideal cognitive mental health person, write down those things that you see in the visits, because those are the things that matter for their functioning, which is what matters for the rest of their life. Okay, not just the 45 minutes in session. All right, so going back to backs, those things are in the record. That's great. That means the judge has the opportunity to believe it or not believe it. He might find for him to believe it, a lot of times it has to be well supported by the rest of the medical record. So let's say you don't really take a lot of treatment, you just take your pills and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just being hypothetical here. And you go, your doctor sent you to a neuropsych. I think did you say that last week that the doctor sent you? It wasn't like you went and bought it yourself. And no. But if the rest of the records, there's no other records to support that one off, that judge is going to not really feel compelled to have to believe the neuropsychologist. The more it's supported by the durational, because by the way, there's a 12-month duration too. A neuropsychologist, that's a one-day visit, right? So the what you guys do day to day in terms of taking care of or pursuing improvement or palliative care or whatever is going to result in evidence anyway, that is what is going to be the strength of your case, more so than a one-hit wonder. And I know that's a pain because that means you have a job to do. Going to physical therapy and getting updated MRIs of each body part you say is not like when you were 20. If you haven't had one in a year, I'd start thinking about getting one scheduled, because a lot of times they're pushed out. And by the time you get it, it's too late. Can't be used after the hearing or whatever. Our Willie's in the house. Happy Wednesday to you too. Baxter says, I also take 5 milligrams Valium. And at that time I was taking 20 milligrams of Norco daily for back pain. Can the ALJ overlook any of this? They don't overlook it. They just find that it brings you to so like, what is the back pain? I mean, I don't know. Does that mean you can't breathe? No, you're clearly breathing. So it's not that bad. So what level is it? And would it obliterate all jobs? And will the combination of the mental, the cognitive, the seizures, and the back pain, although it sounds like you don't have to take as much pain medicine anymore, you said at the time you were taking it, will that all combine to convince someone that you couldn't do that third grader easy job? As what, you can't do the other 11,999, but could you do that one that's left that's in substantial numbers in the economy? It's always the totality of the evidence, and it's all about functioning, not about how you feel, how much you say it hurts, which I know to be true, but what I know doesn't matter, right? So it's there's something to be said for our actions speak louder than our words. So if we're talking about pain, but we're not willing to pursue conservative therapies that are kind of standard for that kind of condition or recommended by our doctor. Some people say, well, my doctor didn't mention it, so I haven't done anything. And I want to say, well, you have an incompetent doctor perhaps, but that's not going to benefit you. That's not going to save the day. So maybe you have to push your doctor and say, listen, I want to discuss conservative therapies. Can we discuss this? Things that may help even incrementally this particular condition or this particular condition. And when I'm talking about it, I'm usually talking about musculoskeletal issues, because we're usually trying to get down that RFC, the exertional aspects of the RFC. But, I've seen it way too often where someone says, my doctor didn't say I should do that. Well, did you ask him? I mean, come on, we all know the doctors don't hop to it. You know, they do what they have to do to, you know, get through the workday and do the basics. But some of them are very good and do suggest things, and some don't. And I don't know if it has to do with the interpersonal relationship between a patient and a doctor. You know, if a patient is normally grumpy about something, does a doctor stop suggesting? Or if they, you know, or if you suggested it 3 years ago 10 times and the patient, like me, didn't follow up, do they stop suggesting? Maybe, you know. So you have to do it. You have to be your own advocate with your medical treatment. And I say this from a position of the legal evidence, not as a replacement for your medical judgment after speaking with your doctor. But you're going to be left with what you're left with if you don't get proactive. And then it's really, I'm sorry, but only you to blame if that ends up happening. I'm not talking about you, Baxter. I know you're diligent. Okay, I'm speaking generally to everybody because I see it too often. People are just, we're very passive, you know, particularly when we see the white coats. Like, they know everything. We're in safe hands now. Well, I kind of don't feel that way, but, you know, we have to push for what we want. Think about how you did it if you're a parent, or would do it if you were a parent. If that was your child and you thought the doctor would be suggesting something, or at least inquiring, and it mum's the word and they shuffle you right out again, you'd be standing up whining. You'd be weotching about it because you're gonna do what has to, you're gonna be the advocate for your child because you know your child can't do it. You got to do the same for yourself. Sometimes people are marrying a spouse because their spouse is better at doing that kind of stuff. I see a lot of wives that come in and take control of the situation when the husband is the type that's not the complainer, and then, you know, maybe doesn't remember how much pain he was in last week, or just, you know, some lot of guys and ladies too, but particularly the working, you know, the worker mentality. You push through it for so long. You didn't go to the doctor because you were working, you know, very, very few doctor appointments. And when you did, the last thing you're going to do is start connection about that. You're talking about something else. Maybe it's the blood pressure medicine or something a little bit more passive that isn't going to really affect your SSD case, but it's important for your overall health. So I think it's very hard for many people to start being the vocal complainer. And when I say complainer, I mean medical complaints. It's not like you're a whiner baby, but you might feel like it because you're not used to doing that. Sometimes that's where it's good to bring in that family member who can do a lot of the speaking when you're kind of quiet. I know I do it with my husband when he had some really serious life-threatening things going on a couple years ago, because I was afraid he was going to forget relevant things. And 2 ears are better than one set of ears, particularly the one who's the patient, who's a little nervous and stuff. So now we've got to have a little teamwork. Virginia says, how long does it take a CE to get back to the SSA? Usually, Virginia, I see them pretty quick, within like a week, but not always. I've seen them be longer. I have one guy now who had a CE in June, and there's still no result in his case. Personally, of course, I think it should be a win, but, you know, what do I know? So it really depends. What if the CE does a thing, and then, see what I usually see? I'd say more often than not, they bang it out right away. Sometimes the same day, they want to get it up their plate. They're not getting paid extra for a well-tuned report. So they have their templates, and they plug everything in. They just want to get it out, and now the job's over. And then the SSA at that point, usually it goes at that point to the medical expert to determine, okay, well, now we have all the medical evidence. What is the RFC for this person? And then it goes back to the adjudicator for the final decision, which is going to be based on that RFC and what the rules say about that RFC for your vocational profile. Sometimes they realize, well, we haven't gotten the VA records in 4 months, or that other big health network, we're going to do a HIPMR on that. Or maybe it's when we have to actually fax out and request, and they'll do that. And so then they got to wait for those. That can make it a couple of weeks. But usually the CE exam is after that stuff is in. Usually scheduled after that because they realize they need to kind of comply with things. Paul Resendez is in the house. Hello once again. Great channel for info. Thank you, Paul. Good to see you. Butch is in the house. Butch T. Thank you for telling me to contact my congressman about my claim. It had been a year since I applied with no movement. One day after contacting my congressman, they got me a caseworker, sent papers. Woo! Way to go there, Butch. Glad to hear it. It's for removing the cog that's in the wheel. You had a clear cog. You weren't saying, hey, I'm writing to you because I want, you know, they should have won me my case and blah, blah. So can you do something about it? I'm disabled. That wouldn't work. But that's not what you did. You just wanted to, I think it fell in a crack. Can you find out from it? So that was great on your part. Hi, Heather. Heather says, good afternoon, everyone. Baxter says, Steph, thank you for being patient with me. You are always a pleasure, Baxter, and I appreciate how you're always friendly and nice and kind. Happy Claims in the house. Hi, Kathy. Good afternoon to you, too. TJ says, mine is seeking representation. Mine is seeking representation after my original attorney said they aren't taking on appeals right now. Frustrating. I asked them for electronic file. Yeah, I'd ask them for electronic file. They should send it to you. It's super easy. Like I said, and I forget if we talked, DJ, and where that was at, but if you want me to look at it, you could do that. Not to get in the way of what you've already been pursuing, though. Wouldn't want to interfere with that. Kathy says, I received my back pay for SSDI. Woo, woo. I was getting widow's benefits. Shouldn't that amount be taken out of the lump sum back pay? Yes, probably. Yeah. You don't think it was taken out, Kat? So you were getting widow's benefits till now. Then you're getting your own SSDI, which is bigger. And so you're going to get back. You are going to get, if your SSDI for the same months you got widows before, but now it has to be replaced with SSDI. If the SSDI is bigger, which is the only reason why this would even be worth anything to you, you should get the balance, the combined months of the balance difference. Now, did your SSDI go, did it precede your widowhood benefits? Let's say you had widowhood for a year, but you were disabled 3 years ago and you proved it. You might have, and you filed, well, I don't know if the filing, because they only go back 12 months, but before the date of application. But there could be some extra months like that. Sometimes we see that with people who file for early retirement, but they were disabled for like a year or two beforehand, and they filed for disability, and then they filed for early retirement. And then when the case pans out, yes, they want SSD. They were collecting early retirement, which you don't have to prove squat for that. So for the last year, they were collecting early retirement, but the disability was finally proven as of a year before that, or 2 years before that. You're going to get all the back pay prior to the early retirement, plus they're going to get the little top off for all the retirements to get them up to the SSD amount. Basically, it reverses the early retirement taking, which is great because then you don't have that forced reduction for the rest of your life for taking early, because now you didn't take early in hindsight. Retroactive way it got normalized to SSD. Kathy says, my calculations, oops, that north, ooh, yeah. I have a case where I don't think they took up the attorney's fees. It's not typical, they screw up, so I just let the client know, don't you spend, I always say you can send it and it goes into trust. Send the 25% and it'll go to trust. And we can only then accept it as a fee anyway once we get the approval letter from the SSA. If they disapprove for some reason, which would never happen, but if they did, I'd have to send it all back to the client. If they approved only a portion of that for some weird reason, which I wouldn't expect, then the same thing. But this client didn't care to do that. So, I did give the heads up that, just make sure that you don't spend that, because when the letter comes down and you don't send it forthrightly, it's going to be an overpayment, I believe. And now you're going to be dealing with an overpayment unless you... And the thing is, you don't really want that cognitive wheel, even though you could remedy it that week. By the time they get wind of it being remedied, who knows? Like, an overpayment is like that cognitive wheel that we don't ever want. You just don't want to play games. So, but to each his own. I mean, it is their rights. I just think it's not the wisest thing. Don Cience, how are you, Don? Wanted to update you on my award. CDR says 5 to 7 years. I'll be 59 in September. What are your thoughts on this? Well, you got your award. You'll be 59. Did we talk about this? Was that last week? So you will be mid to late 60s. Well, you'll be 59. I mean, you could get I tend to think in your 60s, they're going to obviously review. If you were in a medical improvement expected, you'll probably get at least a short form, if not, more than that. Most cases, I don't really find it to be the super short ones where you got the 5 to 7. That means it's not expected. Medical improvement, not expected. Mine. So I would expect a short form or a bypass. They do that too, where they just don't bother at all. And it's not clear to me if they always tell you. And it would be nice if they said, you're scheduled for a CDR. We do not believe we need to do that at this time. So carry on. I just talked to someone this week. I don't know, where was it? Must have been on one of the posts. Was it this morning? That they got bypassed like that. Oh, I think it was someone I did a consult for. Yeah. So maybe we did the short form. I forget. Or the long form. I don't even remember. Maybe it was just a consult asking questions. But it was CDR related. And they just got the notice that CDR is going to bypass them. So that was pretty awesome. Sybil Chick says, okay, I have done the SSA consultative exam 1 month ago. New letter, introduction letter. I am still uploading all medical appointments and tests to SSA site. Why did I receive an introduction letter? Who's that from? Is that from the field office or from the adjudicator? Had you never gotten an introduction letter from your adjudicator? I mean, we just had a case where I get word of a denial on initial, and then I see that the day before the denial, the field office, dated the day before the denial, sends the, hey, we received your application, and it says this, this, and this, which had a bunch of errors that weren't true. And if they they never actually did a thorough workup medically, I don't think, but so obviously we have to appeal. But I mean, 3 months later, they said, or 2.5 months later, they send a letter saying that they got the application. It's already been through the DDS and denied, you fools. So, little annoying. Virginia says 53, California. On my portal, pardon me, guys, I have an old cause on SSI Appeals Conservative. Old case. On my new case, it says 3 of 5 medical reviews. So you're on section 3, which is mean they're doing all the medical stuff. 4 and 5 goes pretty fast. 1 goes fast. 2 goes pretty fast. 3 is the long one. What step is the appeals counsel from a remand? That is not one of those steps. The 3 to 5 that you're talking about is a sequential evaluation process. I do have a playlist on that if you want to go through each one. There's one that tells you what they all are, and then each one is broken out. So appeals counsel is just the same thing as I filed the application, I'm on initial. I got denied. Now I'm at the stage where I'm filing for a reconsideration appeal. Get denied. Now I'm at the stage where I file a request for a hearing. So that's basically an appeal for an ALJ hearing. And then if you get denied there, you're at the stage where you may or may not appeal to the appeals counsel. So, but I think you said you went to federal court with that old case. And then so when it comes back in federal court, I think the appeals counsel always looks at them. It decides, she's entitled to a hearing unless we can fully favorably award her, is basically, I think, what they said. Is probably the way they're looking at it. If they can fully give you what you asked for, they can award you. That would be rare, but they can. And then if not, I got to go have another hearing, just like the federal district court order. So they're like a one who could make it like quicker. If not, you'll go back to hearing because you have the right to the hearing, the next hearing. Shit Slots is in the house. Hey, bud. Punta Gorda. There you guys. Good afternoon from Punta Gorda, Florida. Hit like button and subscribe. Yes, I'll second that. Heather says, I typically have appointments on my best days. I try to rest and take it easy leading up to them so that they become your best days, right, Heather? I mean, you can't predict, right? You can predict. That would be super. So I'm able to make it there and be coherent. I've canceled, missed a few, but I do pretty good. Well, that's good. Yeah, so you really mitigate and your environment gets controlled so that you on that 3rd day of the week can be able to go to that appointment, right? Like you do everything to avoid any kind of migraine, right? That would put you in bed. So maybe you're already kind of hanging out in the dark a little bit, keeping everything low key. I don't know, is it something like that? Heather says, some may think I'm crazy showing up half decent and complaining about my other days. No, everyone's got their good and bad days. And that's definitely true with migraines. My goodness. I mean, I know people who have the worst migraines. And when they're not in a migraine, they are batting 1,000. Batting 1,000. That's the frustrating thing about migraines. It takes them from one extreme, like they're fine, and then they're out for the count. It's terrible affliction. Heather says, I know it's important to report all appointments during the crazy process. I think so, because what are you going to do? Make a judgment call, and then you erred on the side of being too lenient with not reporting them. Just be very driven. I mean, whether you do it every time you have one to the SSA, like I like my clients to report every appointment. I'd like them to do it in real time so that we have it. Because if it's a day we're shooting out letters or phone calls to the adjudicators, you want that information in front of us. So if you're like delaying all month, well, guess what? You're going to get missed. So, we can go as fast as you go. And if someone has a bunch, we're going to send out the information, even if it wouldn't have been a day, we're doing it just like a quick review for everybody, because we see that one comes in. But you don't necessarily want to be shooting a letter to the adjudicator for one appointment unless it's of great magnitude, of course. So like for us, we like to see, when we're always like, when you get back and you're relaxed at home, just pop into the portal, they can do it on the phone, the date, of the appointment, who it was with, what street are they at, so we know which office, and what it was for. So it's A, B, C, D. A, B, C, yeah. And what it was for. If it's just like a annual exam, it's not really like a major thing. If it's like a surgical consult, we're going to be hopping on that right away because that's going to have a bigger, impact. So it's worth bugging the adjudicator, potentially, urging her to go get that, or at least letting her know about it. Heather says, therefore, I suppose I shouldn't even ask this question. You can always ask, but I want to make sure. Does that also include random urgent care appointments for things like my poison attack? Yes, I think everything. That way you don't have to think about it. You don't have to, take the gamble or evaluate. I like to have everything, and I'm talking everything. Some people go, well, I didn't include my gynecological doctor in my stuff because, that's not my disability. But it's can be have some good nuggets of information because a lot of times this is for the ladies in the group, guys, with the gyno, you might be They know you have a bad back. They're carefully, gingerly getting up on the table. Or you just discuss the bad back, because sometimes the bad back has to do with lady problems, or it's implicated by or worsened by. So when that's mentioned, now we've got yet another doctor where even though they're not even treated for the bad back, they're mentioning the bad back. That just gave a lot more credence to the bad back, potentially, than would otherwise have been there. So you see how what I say? I always say there's a method to our madness. But, you don't want to, out of laziness, and I don't mean you guys, but like even on our side, like never should laziness, or do I have to do that again? Because, it's just this kind of appointment. That some of the nuggets come out of just these kind of appointments. Same with urgent cares. Someone goes for poison ivy, but, the lady notices that their blood pressure, well, I'm not going to send you to the ER, but it's through the roof, or you walk with an intelligent gait, or your knee is all swollen out to there, or you couldn't get up on the table because of the back, even though you weren't there for the back. All these things can come up. Yeah, I'm the only attorney here, Deej. Everyone else is just the team players. Happy says, and again, it has to go through eval. So I thought you sent me one once, but I don't know, it's probably archived. So just send it again. So don't hold me to it, and don't kick anyone to the curb. Let us take a look, okay? See if we have openings in that particular category. Because we do like to do first in, first out, so it's fair. Kathy Clayton says it didn't. Widows was January 1st, 2025. Disability on set approval was a year later. Okay. Yeah, I think they should take, I think widows would be taken out. It would be an offset, and they'd give you the balance. So if they didn't do that, you might want to make a phone call. Or if you're not sure they did it, I mean, it's probably not the most complicated of math, but if you're not positive, I would definitely call them before you spend the back benefits. Otherwise, they're going to have to give you an overpayment and then withholds from your future benefits. And that's a little nerve-wracking, Antoine, how you doing? I'm applying for SSDI. This is my second time getting denied, but they're going to appeal it. Do you have any info on what I should do to get it this time? I have no idea what your impairments are, so I can't really give you specific suggestions, Antoine. But your lawyers would probably tell you, here's what I usually tell people. Treat for everything, every body part and joint that is not as fit, strong, fast, comfortable as it was when you were 20. I don't know how old you are, Antoine, so that changes things up considerably. I don't know your vocational profile, that changes things up considerably. But the big broad picture is treat, and be medically compliant and treat your impairments like the disabling ones you claim they are. All right. So inconvenience, yes, of course. Getting proofs in any case is. I mean, it's what I've been doing for decades, so I know what an inconvenience it is to pursue evidence. Pain, but you got to do it. It's like, how do you expect a puzzle to be put together if you don't get all the parts and put them together? Happy says, I put it all in my savings. Good for you. I'm too scared to spend until a award letter comes. I agree. I do, boy, want an overpayment. You don't want an overpayment. No, you don't. I mean, you could survive an overpayment for sure, but it's stressful. And if they have to reduce your future benefits, that's not going to be comfortable, to pay back. So best just to take care of it off the bat, I think. Virginia says, 53 California, my CE was 522. Yeah, that's long. Did we talk about that last week, Virginia? That's pretty long. Have you spoken to, you have an attorney. You might want to ask your attorney, but, they could look at, you have an attorney, they can look in the file and see what's going on. Has more evidence been coming in? They can see what evidence has come in and what day it got in there. So if more evidence is coming in, very possible that that's what's getting reviewed. And then maybe it was delayed going to the medical expert because more evidence is coming in. Or gosh forbid, it went to the medical expert, and while it was there, more evidence came in, like one of the doctors suddenly presented updates or something. So, but that is a long time. I mean, what are we at? That's like 2.5 months, right? Yeah, almost 3 months. That's a long time. Sybil says, nope, never spoken to my ALJ. No, I think we're talking about adjudicator, right? Not ALJ. Let me just scroll up. Okay. Sybil Chick says, I think that's what you meant. Not ALJ. You meant adjudicator, right, Sybil? She did the SSA consultative-exam a month ago. So if you have an attorney, reach out to your attorney. They can tell you what's going on. They can look at it. If you don't, then it's your job to be communicating with your adjudicator. Antoine says, I'm 44, had my leg amputated, and have congested heart failure, taking blood thinners. Okay, you're young. God, I'm sorry about that, Antoine. I'll tell you, a leg amputation is not a de facto, you're disabled from all jobs. as you probably learned. I would think the congestive heart failure would eliminate maybe medium level jobs, but maybe not light or sedentary. Leg amputation would not necessarily even eliminate a light job, even though you're on your feet a lot, because if a prosthetic works well, then it's no big shakes. You know, maybe it would influence whether you could lift heavy things like 100 pounds, but things less than that, maybe not. So there's a lot more to it that has to go into it. I think I told you all once, I had a sepsis amputee case. This is several years ago now. Most bizarre thing ever. Very tragic. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm hearing more and more about sepsis. Like I've known like 3 people in the last year that got it and nearly died. My peers that I grew up with. So very strange. But this was someone else. And the person lost, I want to say 3, like whether it was 2 feet in a hand or 2 feet a hand and part of the other hand. It was really bad. It was at least a triple, you know. It wasn't up to the, you know, it wasn't high up. It was the extremities. And we had to really fight that case. We didn't have to go to hearing, but it was, you look and you go, oh, I mean, I know just like as people were like, oh my God, of course a person's disabled. But you got to remember the law has to be met specifically. 12 months. People in 12 months can get a prosthetic that works wonders for them. Then there's people that prosthetics don't even work for, particularly when it's the legs and all that weight bearing stuff. It took a little bit. I don't know that we had to appeal for recon, but it was I just remember being a little bit more naive about it, you know, and you know, you live and you learn, but you still have to, you got to prove your stuff. I had another fellow that was a leg amputee, and in that case, the prosthetic was never working right. It wasn't it was like it was inconsistent with him. Like it would aggravate the skin, and the skin would get all irritated and erupted. And I mean, what a horrible place to be in, right? You can't wear something that's going to hurt, you know. So eventually it did work out okay, but that took a bit of a while too. No hearing was necessary, but I think it was a recon. I think Civil Chick says DDS with the original ALJ person. I think you mean adjudicator. ALJ is administrative law judge. I don't think that's what you're talking about. I think you mean adjudicator. So that would be like an ADJ if you wanted to abbreviate it. The original adjudicator person changed to the person over the original. Okay, so there was first an adjudicator and then there was a new adjudicator. I've spoken with them before. I wonder if my original adjudicator is no longer there. Could be. You know, some people retire, some people quit, some people get fired. You know, God forbid they get sick and are on leave. That certainly happens. So yeah, ADJ, not ALJ. So because otherwise you're going to a judge. Hey Dimple. Dimple's here from Ohio. Nice to see you, my dear. Heavy Hammer's in the house. Hey Heavy. Hello from Florida. Nice, very hot down there, huh? I recently had my hearing with the ALJ, and the judge didn't ask me anything other than procedural questions and let my counsel carry the show. Is that normal? That is normal. I see it both ways. So it's like 50-50. Yeah. I don't know that that's a good sign or a bad sign. I wish I could say that, but I do see that regularly. So that's why the attorney has to always be prepared with all the questions they're going to go over, that they hopefully have already gone over with you. So they know the answers that are going to come out of your mouth. And you already know to expect them. That's what that hearing prep is for, a day or 2 beforehand. Heather says, once I receive access to my SSA file, I quite possibly may have several to add, but I'm not sure. I'm really hoping they send it to me soon so I can dig into it. Yes, and once your attorney gets on board, they will have access to it. So that sometimes works faster than if you're asking the SSA for it. Yeah, so let's see about that one. Because the attorney will get it from the ERA as soon as they get connected to the file. Lisa Simpkins says, hi Lisa, I don't think we've met. I plan to file at 62, so you plan to file for early retirement and take the permanent discounted rate, cut off the top 30%, right? And my husband at 70, so he gets an extra 30% on his, right? We have 2 special needs adult daughters that will be DAC eligible. Is that why you want to take it 62? We will bump the family max. Okay. Are we eligible for combined family max? Gosh, you're making me dig here, at least. I kind of think so. Yeah. I don't want to go out on a limb here because I don't want to say something that's incorrect. Makes me want to take a note there and look it up because that's a really good question. And with 2 kids that are DAC plus yourselves, that family max is critical, right? So this is what I'm thinking. So I took a note here when I get a breathing room, which is God knows hardly ever, but I know that you have your family max, you take it 62, your one child, it wouldn't necessarily work mandatorily this way, but if he gets his full amount, because on yours alone, one kid should be able to get their 50% or whatever it's going to be, 75%, assuming that's within your family max, and then the other kid on the other family max. So I feel like that should cover. Because you said you'll bump the family max. You mean on dad's record, that family max is bumped if that's all you have? So if it's your basic, you collecting under yours, and then, yeah, I think it should be okay. But I am curious because now you're making me second guess this, which is good because I'm really just going on presumptions about the family max. But it's a really good question. So if I can find it, I will. And I will either do a video real fast and I'll put like the links to where I'm reading this in the comments or in the description. So, I don't want anyone to ever take anybody's word for anything. Always do the due diligence and have the research behind you, right? Heather says, I just wanted to ask about random urgent care visits because I don't want to overload anyone and being annoying if it's not wanted. You're never going to be annoying and it will always be wanted because, again, I wouldn't, for all you know, there's a great nugget of information in some of those random urgent cares. Just don't know. Sometimes I'll say something like, it could be a good medical assistant, which is probably worth her or his weight in gold. Could be like, looks very fatigued, looks pasty, having difficulty with the lights in here. Like, the lights seem to be causing her pain. You could find these, and you weren't in there for like the migraine that's brewing. You're in there for, you got a cut on your finger and you need, stitches or something. So it can be really helpful. And every little crumb, I would say it's like a bunch of crumbs that build up the cake. It's never going to be one thing. Like, people go into it sometimes and they're like, well, I have this, so I'm in like Flynn. I'm like, no, not so much. Not so much. Baxter says, my SSA CE exam showed significant difficulty with rote tasks up and down. See, that was a CE exam. I like that, Baxter. Rote tasks up, down, left, right, adaptability, and stated I may need someone to handle my funds in the future. I think that's a really strong CE exam. You might get a representative P as a result, or at the time, if you prevail and you don't think you need a CE, a rep payee, let's say you have your memory's, gone sideways, right? But if you have everything on auto pay through the bank, through the online stuff, that's a great assistance. And that, I think, can really be used to help people who do not want a rep pay and really don't need one because of auto pay. Like if the only danger was they were going to forget bills, auto pay. So one can use that. A lot of times the field office is going to make the judgment call after the fact, and they'll have you come in. And it's kind of interesting because I think it's just like these late people clerks eyeballing you. So go in there like a semi-normal person when you do it and just speak and say, I came in because I had an appointment about the representative pay. I don't believe I need one. My bills I have them all set up through auto pay. So I don't have that problem. I may have, forgetfulness, but it doesn't pertain to my bills. So, and then you see, sometimes people get a letter from their PCP saying, she's got a lot of disabilities, but she doesn't need someone handling her money. Memory's a tough one, though. They might be like, really? But that's where I think auto pay can be a bit of a crumb in your favor on that part. Hey, CG. He says, hey, late, but got here. Good for you. Good for us, actually. Got call from SSA confirming received documents I mailed, so moving forward at least. Oh, very good. That was nice of them. Really. Baxter says, neuropsych stated for me to use calendars, alarms, reminders of time. SSA psychologist states I have severe difficulty, rote task, and rote, guys, means repetitive, simple stuff, right, Baxter? Yep. Does this show difficulty? Yeah, it sure shows difficulty. Shit slots. I love that name. I have had 6 spine surgeries, 7 in 2 months. I'm finally able to go to gym to work out legs a little. Will SSA use AI to check if people are going to gym? How are they going to use AI to check if you're going to the gym? I wouldn't worry about it. If you end up having a CDR where you're filling out a function report and you tell them that you go to the gym and that you pump iron, 3 hours a day, they're going to know about it. Will it affect your case? I don't know because I don't know, the parameters of your case. But if your doctor says, I think you need to work on your legs, it'll help you maintain your stability as baseline or whatever, and your strength as we get older, which is something everyone should do, right? I don't think that's going to hurt. But when you go to the doctor, don't be, some people are like all ego and like, oh, I've been benching, I don't know, what would be a good, I've been benching 300, doc, I just won the award at the contest, at the county fair for being able to bench the most. That could really not be helpful. But doing, I would also maybe express them in strength training exercises instead of pumping iron, the way we say things. And it's true. I mean, I do it right now since like May because I really need to get certain body parts stronger. And I refer to it as physical therapy. it's technically personal training 3 times a week. He kills me. But I refer to it as physical therapy because it is building things that have gotten really decompensated and important for my future in terms of independence in my home and all that. I mean, I'm getting up there in age and I just want that. I don't want to be that person if I can avoid it. I know there's so many other things that can take me out, but I don't want it to be because I've been sitting on my butt in this chair for 30 years as my job. So not nearly active enough like I was when I was young. And for 30 years, not being active enough. And I know we discussed the things that happen to the body when it happens, the butt problem, the tailbone problem, the seat bones, as they say, and also the neck thing. And I always have to think about it where you know, people that sit at a desk get that turtle syndrome, which I did that. And I kind of self-treated, but I followed a lot of directions that I learned of with some astute research, and I got it fixed. It took a long time. It took months and months of conscientious, intentional doings, but it didn't take. And the only reason I do the physical therapy is because I don't have the motivation to go do it myself, join a gym and go. I tried doing that since I was 18 and I fail every time. I quit. I'm not a good gym motivated person, but when I have these people waiting for me and I paid out the nose for it, and it's actually semi-private, so like I have a new friend. She's really cool, you know, someone my age, and so there's like, it's not all young kids. In fact, because it's personal training, there's really not anybody super young usually, because who can afford it? You know, I could never afford it. So at this point, I think it's a substitute for true physical therapy copays. So probably this is cheaper actually, and way more fun. Let's see. Civil Chick says, crazy acronym is glad you can understand me. I got it from your contacts, no worries. Heavy Hammer says, thank you for your time. My pleasure. Thanks for stopping in. Any questions anytime, Heavy? Dimple says, does sedentary grid include any weight limits? Oh, yes. No more than 10 pounds, which is a little frustrating because I see a lot, doctors' offices, particularly if they're somehow associated to do a lot of workers' comp type of stuff, they will always pop things up to 25, which is not even under light. That's medium level work. That's it's not technically heavy work, which is higher than that. But between 20 and 1 ounce and 50 pounds is medium level work. It's not even light work. Light work is 10 to 20. Sedentary work is like negligible, low, 1 pound to 10 pounds. So when they throw the 25, I'm like, are you kidding me? Have you ever tried to lift 25 pounds repeatedly when you're got back problems or arm problems or neck problems or hand problems? It's not really something that you can do for long. Yeah, Heather, Tasha isn't here today, or I asked her if she has access to my file yet. Haha. I'll send a message in the portal to see if there's anything available yet. Okay, you could do that. Yeah, Tasha is out there. I was going to bring her in, and then when I went to get her, she was kind of like snooty to me. So I said, all right, good. And I closed the door. I could, you'd stay here. Because I didn't have time to play around like that. She was just in a grumpy mood, so I let her blow off some steam. Virginia says, from 2013 to now, ended up having ANA, anti-dsDNA, lupus, fibro, inflammatory arthritis, oh my goodness, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, bilateral carpal tunnel, bilateral, and you're so young. Didn't you ever wonder why we're getting so sick? Just throwing it out there. Yeah, I think you definitely have a chance. Don't give up, Virginia. I'm always worried about the DLI, so keep an eye on your DLI. If it's breathing down your neck, do something about it. Because in time, I think you would definitely, if not now, with proper work and, you know, assuming you're still insured for SSD. If you're only SSI, you don't have to worry about the DLI. But I want you guys all to be on Social Security if you can do it. It's better. It's better, in my opinion. Dimple says, in physical therapy yesterday, I struggled to lift 2 pounds with my right arm. It was so frustrating to realize my lifting limitations. Hopefully they documented that really well. And that's your one arm, not both, right? So I wonder what the other arm is. But then again, thinking about it, helping to verify my limits for SSDI case. Absolutely. Big Dog gives us a nice little comma. Hi, Big Dog. A doggy picture or a lion picture. Baxter says, I guess you can see a little bit of my memory issue. I keep asking the same questions. Yes, you do. And you're not even cutting and pasting, are you? Sorry about that, Steph. No worries, Baxter. It's all good. All right, guys, we're getting low on the questions, and we are only an hour in. So I suppose that's good. Big Dog says, my case was pulled for federal quality review. What is it? Reconsideration step 3, SSI and SSDI. Ooh. Well, okay, so federal quality review is not uncommon. You see it all the time. It is double checking the adjudicator's decision. So it generally means the adjudicator made a determination on your claim. We don't know what that is yet. And then federal quality review is double checking to see if they followed all the steps they needed to follow before they made their decision. If they did not follow the steps, they might send it back to them to complete a step they missed. Or if they completely just got something like took something that said this and made it this, Normally, I'd say this seems to be the vast majority of the time, Big Dog. I see a federal quality review on a positive decision determination by the adjudicator, and I see the federal quality review uphold that. That is the vast majority in my experience. But I do know, and I've over the last months, one or two people have said here they got a federal quality review and then a denial. So I do know that that's possible. I'm just saying I have not seen it personally. And as I said in a different week, I've had 2 cases this year where that federal quality review actually improved the adjudicator's decision and brought the onset date back further so that my guy got more money, my 2 people. So that, that speaks so much to me about their intentions. So I just thought it was, I'd never seen that happen in 21 years. And then twice in I think it was in 1 month. It was a few months ago that happened. And I'm like, there was actually 2 disability determination explanations there. One from the original adjudicator saying they wanted to award, and then the second one amending that and saying, yeah, we think it's an award, but you should have gone back to this date, not just this date. It should go all the way back to here. And I mean, who can't be more happy than that, right? Virginia says, thank you for all your help, and may God bless you. You too. God bless you also, Virginia. Stay strong, lady. All right, guys, there are no questions. I think we went through them all. So, and it's been an hour. So we all cool about cutting out of here? Dimple popped in. Hold on. Dimple says, the therapist gave me 2 pounds for each arm. Had to use ankle weights because I couldn't hold regular weights. You mean they strapped it around your wrist, your arm? Therapy is for left shoulder, but I had told him early on that I wanted to work both arms. Well, wanting to work both arms and having an impairment to the other arm are 2 different things. So I'm just curious, what the resulting is the right arm completely fine? So you can just woo. I mean, one arm being impaired limits some jobs for sure, but it's not going to limit the same amount as both arms being limited. And both arms could be limited in different ways. Like one could be more limited than the other, maybe because of a surgery, but the other one might be limited because of it could be an elbow thing or carpal or an old surgery that's, done and over with, but didn't make the person be able to lift 100 pounds. It's still, we got our age related, limitations or post-surgical limitations. So that's okay. A lot of jobs require bilateral lifting of X amount. And if that X amount is bigger than one arm can do, then you can't do that job at all. And that job will be mixed off. And that's really important and helpful. Hey, Deli is in the house. Hi there, lady. I am also familiar with federal quality review that was denied early last year. Meaning, was that an ALJ decision that was awarded and then federal quality review checked it out and then you still won? Is that what happened? And Delia says, have a great day, everyone. Black says, Walter says in the future they're going to do a CDR every year because of AI. Oh, you could always throw out speculation like that. I don't really like to do that. And the funny thing is, I don't know. I could see using AI eliminates the need for some CDRs because it's clearly not going to be improved. That's not historically how that impairment goes, particularly at the new age. They already have automation with that though, so I don't really know what people are like, AI, it was invented in 2022. It was not invented in 2022. We just little people got access to it. That's all. It became affordable for, the little people. It's been around long. I mean, law firms. He has been working out both arms. So this is Dimple talking about physical therapy. Left could lift the 2 pounds, but that was the limit. Right. So we're asking about, but the left was the one. Wait, hold on. Which is the one that you just had the surgery on? Refresh me. Oh, the right arm. Sorry. Okay. So the right arm. All right. So the left could do the 2 pounds, but could it do 3, 4, 5, 10, 15? How about that? So what it can do doesn't mean it can't do a pound higher. Although if that's the way the record reflects it, I wouldn't argue. All right. Anybody? All right. So again, nothing's going to change. I think we should change the live stream next week to Friday. I think it's a little confusing, but that way there's going to be no scrambling. So I hope that's cool, everybody. I'd rather do that. I don't want to really skip it. So I'm thinking Friday at 1 p.m. If anybody, let me just post it in here. Next week live stream is on Friday. Future travel. It was tempting to do it out there. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll go out on that little deck overlooking the little inlet. And it'll be fun to have a different change of scenery instead of this business. But I don't. Let's just make it Friday at 1 p.m. for sure. If I pop in and do something Wednesday, I pop in and do something Wednesday. But it's our last day, and probably that wouldn't be wise. I'd probably get a what for from my family, so I'll be doing a little bit of work anyway, so I don't know, probably not the best idea. But would appreciate anybody who pops in to watch the dailies, because that is what supports the channel. We have been able to move a little bit forward in some of our categories that are typically full, 1%, 5%. So that's good. And I really couldn't do as many of them as we do without this channel and you guys helping with that. So that's really appreciated. The live streams, I just love when you're here because it's my favorite day of the week, because we get to socialize while we answer questions. So it's good to see everybody. Otherwise, it's rather solitary, you know. It's just the peeps and myself, and usually just myself. So anyway, I will hopefully see you guys next week. Be safe. Have a great weekend. Stay cool if it's hot by you. Stay dry if it's raining by you. And have a great one. Be safe. God bless. Bye, guys.